Hello, I'm Thomas Lail. I guess the pieces I've been doing most recently have been involved with sort of graphic lexology or lexicography, like contemporary symbols and sort of common societal signifiers, flags, maps, comments, the ubiquitous rainbow that we've all seen everywhere for the past year, things like that. And this particular piece kind of stems from a group of works that revolved around flags and all different configurations of them. In this particular case, only the star remains. I guess on this piece, I sort of wanted the star to be a little weathered or a little rendered in like a good home quality, but not quite an industrial finish. So it's a little bled through around the edges. It's not quite solid. Has a little weathered feel to it, as I think many of us were feeling. In terms of materials, most of these pieces, I have a sort of interest in very common materials. This is just a commercial tarp, and not painting canvas, and the stains that you see on it came with, or the runs in the fabric, because no one cares about what their tarp looks like. So I've been interested in those sorts of materials, very common kind of workaday materials, both for their connection to just the everyday world, but also their kind of socioeconomic connections to labor and the things that we don't think of as being sort of featured objects and materials. So tarps or newspaper or found cardboard or pallets, like pallet flags, which you may see around, like the sort of common folk art thing of pallet flags. Some of those preceded these, in fact. So that's been sort of my interest in those materials, and I am a sketchbook keeper, as you can see, and I actually took a couple of notes because it's harder to do 5 minutes than 45 minutes. I guess I should also say that it's unstretched because I sort of wanted it just to have its presence as it was, as a tarp. I do really, really enjoy the aesthetic of stretched canvas rectangles on a wall. I think they're really, really lovely, and I have done them. But more recently, these pieces have all just been sort of stretched up onto the wall. A little allusion to the painter Sam Gilliam in the way that it's hung up, and just sort of letting them exist as they are. So it's a kind of like homespun banner, or also to tie to sketchbooks, I am a sketchbook keeper. And so it wasn't weird for me to keep a sketchbook, but it was weird for me to keep a different sketchbook, because this is my sketchbook. So I will confess that I sort of did them in tandem. So there's actually nothing in that sketchbook that isn't actually also in this sketchbook, because it just felt like, I don't know, it's gonna happen in that sketchbook. I don't know. So I don't sketch, I kind of doodle, I kind of write notes, write down things along the way, and I always have, and I have them all going back to like 1985. So it's a sort of integral part of my process and a way of thinking things through. I usually am working on a bunch of pieces at the same time, and usually my thoughts are running ahead of my making, because it takes longer to make something than to doodle it. And so I also feel like it's a kind of testing ground where things have to stay relevant and they have to remain of interest. And I find that, some die on the vine, some I just never get to. And that's probably good. And others sort of persist, and I get to them eventually. And this one actually hung out for a long time before I actually got around to making it. So that's my story. Trying to keep it brief.
I have a question.
Tara.
With a little insider knowledge, what would you say is the proportion in this piece and the other ones that you've been making like this of hope to, maybe it's too much to to say despair?
Excellent question. I wish I could answer. I don't know.
Does it change by the day?
It certainly does. I mean, I think a lot of the flag pieces were started sort of last summer, where maybe the proportion was different, or maybe not. I don't know. A lot of the maps I've been working on that thinking about borders and boundaries, but I'll confess I've also been looking at maps of rising water, which is like not very hopeful. So, you know, the watercolor paintings of rising water maps is like, I don't know. They look pretty, but there's definitely a little dread in there. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's somewhere in between.
This star is humanoid.
In its size?
No, in it's
like
what
sort of-
happens when you drape it.
Yeah,
So it's very different.
Yeah, it
than a
becomes much less rigid too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, if it's hung too close together, it gets just sort of goofy.
Yes.
I think I had originally intended for it to be a little more solid, but as it went, it seemed to make sense to be this way. There's a little bit of a nod. I will also put out a little bit of a nod to a very little-known artist named Holt Quentel, who had a bit of a career at the end of the 80s and made these canvas tarps with like letters and numbers on them. And I was always very fond of Holt Quentel's work. She had a number of shows in New York, and then, as they say in her bio, removed herself from the art world. She just disappeared. She sort of garbled. So it's a little bit of an homage to Holt Quentel's work.
Any other questions?
Happy for you. That's fine. Don't feel awkward.